So happy to see you all once again, friends of Old Time Radio. It's hard to believe that this is the start of the Riverside Township Radio Players' 14th season. Much has evolved since those first few programs, not the least of which is the inclusion of our shows on local cable network 6 and streaming them on the internet by keying in www.riversideradio.net. We'll have some little flyers out there you can see later. Needless to say, we owe our appearances to the Riverside Township and all its trustees. Two of them sometimes come fairly frequently. I don't see them in the audience today. Just a little background for tonight's first presentation. Escape began broadcasting on July 7th, 1947, and shows continued until September 25th, 1954. The interesting thing about this series is that it was often shifted to at least 18 different time slots, used as summer replacements, dropped from the schedule for weeks only to be picked up again, and almost disappeared before it got started. Except that the veteran people who still remained in radio at the time, this was in the late 40s, saw something special in its stories. Some of its well-known voices were William Conrad, Jack Webb, Frank Lovejoy, Hans Conried, Parley Bayer, Virginia Gregg. Many of the Escape stories also became radio classics and were later repeated on its sister series, Suspense. Now, Suspense was everything Escape was not. It had fame, it had tradition, consistent time slots, and sponsors. You may notice that tonight's play has no commercials. Now, can you remember radio or TV, for that matter, without commercials? Before we get started, I just want to ask you whether any of you remember hearing one of the most chilling Escape stories. It was first broadcast in 1949 and was called Three Skeleton Key. Does anyone remember that play? It was chilling. It was a technical achievement, sound effects-wise. Two sound men utilized 10 turntables and various animal noises in their creation of the show's swarming pack of rats coming after the victims in a lighthouse tower. I believe the actor, hero, or victim, if you want to call him that, was Vincent Price. Anyway, we don't have 10 turntables with us today, and therefore no rats. Instead, the tale is called The Haunted Man, about a man whose life is being destroyed by something that never was. Are we ready?
Ever dream of a life of romantic adventure? Want to get away from it all?
We offer you Escape. Escape, designed to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
Fed up with the everyday grind, tired out from the summer heat, want to get away from it all?
We offer you Escape. Escape, designed to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
You are standing in the light of an arc lamp by a cathedral in Mexico City, looking at a dead body lying in the grass, and a great fear comes over you as you wonder if you are a haunted man.
Tonight, we escape to Mexico City and to the soul of a man strangely obsessed, as Ralph Bates told it to his fascinating story, The Haunted Man.
I have known in my lifetime only one man like Davison, and I hope that I may never know another. I was not aware of his trouble at first, and thought him only strange, or perhaps a little mad. But time passed by, and long before that last black and horrible night, I had begun to realize that he was one of Earth's most cursed creatures, a haunted man. My first meeting with Davison was an odd piece of circumstance in itself. I was in San Francisco at the time, and one night, for no good reason, I left my hotel and wandered down to North Beach, deserted and dark at the late hour. I was walking along the sand by the edge of the water, feeling the dampness of the fog and watching the lights across the bay, when I heard a splashing noise nearby. Somebody or something was coming toward me, up out of the water. Who is it?
Huh? Well, I hardly expected a welcoming committee. I suppose since you're the mayor of San Francisco?
That's a bad presumption. I'm not. You picked late hours to go swimming.
I wasn't merely swimming, I was running away.
From the police?
No, from a ghost.
I see. Wears a long white robe, I suppose. Clanks change. That sort of thing.
Oh, ridiculous. This one is real. No robes, no chains, and it doesn't have any face.
No face, huh?
None at all. It might be better if it did, or worse. I don't know. My name is Davidson, by the way.
Mine's Temple. Glad to know you.
Glad? Why? I'm haunted, you know.
What of it? We all have our idiosyncrasies.
Twice I gave up. I was sure I could never make it, and even that, it didn't matter, not in the least. And then finally, well, here I am.
How far out did you go?
Oh, I swam across from the other side of the Golden Gate.
Across that current? I don't believe it.
Careful, or you may end up haunted yourself.
Then I'll just swim across San Francisco Bay at midnight. I presume you did lose it out there somewhere, that thing without a face?
I'm not sure. I don't think so. Come on, I have a room a couple of blocks from here. I need some dry clothes, and I think we both could use a drink.
All right, let's go.
Oh, there's only one thing. We could drink 100-year-old brandy or 3-day-old gin, whichever you like. I have a pair of Spanish dueling pistols. If you think it might be amusing, we could load them up and kill each other. Anything you wish, only I will not tell you why I swam across the channel. I'll not talk about it, about the... Oh, come on, let's go.
We talked the night away, but Davison did not refer again to the odd remarks he'd made earlier. And after a time, I charged them off as idle fancy. Perhaps I should have sensed the hideous thing that night. But as I recall, I only thought him a little mad and strange in his own way. We met a time or two afterwards, and then he was off somewhere. And over a year passed before the next time I saw the haunted man. Our next meeting was in New York, and purely by accident again. Strange how chance kept creeping up on us. I ran into him walking down Broadway, and an hour later we were sitting at a table in a speakeasy. I think the year was 1929. Anyway, Prohibition was still on, and this place was in the cellar of one of those converted brownstones in the 50s. You may remember them. A few other patrons were sitting across the room, and a player piano banged away in one corner. All in all...
Davids, you know where I've been for the last 6 months?
Out west somewhere, so a friend of yours told me, a painter named Davano.
Painter? That phony couldn't paint a hole in the ground.
All right, no use getting all keyed up about it.
I am keyed up, like a violin string that gets tighter and tighter and keeps playing a higher note, and I can't do anything about it.
Why not? What's the reason for it?
That thing would drive anybody. Hey, how about shutting that piano off? Oh, I've been out west prospecting for gold.
Find any?
No.
What would you have done anyhow? You don't need it.
I don't know. Throw it in the ocean, I guess. I didn't lose it, you know. That night they're out on the bay.
Didn't lose what?
My ghost.
Oh, the thing without any face. It's still after you, huh?
Closer all the time. Look!
What?
There by the stairway. That girl, she just came in.
Oh, yes, I've heard of her. She's Frolling's niece, or his ward. Something or other, anyway. He's the one with her.
There's no one with her. There never could be.
Wait a minute, Davison. This is the wrong kind of place to start anything.
In a million years, I'm too late to start anything. I'm only being carried along. Will you join us, please?
Well, I don't know. I suppose...
Better come on over, Froling. He gets violent when people misunderstand him.
Well, all right. Here you are, Temple. It's been a long time. This is my niece.
And may I present my friend, Mr.
Never mind, Temple. I already know her.
Why, I'm sure I never.
You were Venus, and Helen, and Circe too, perhaps. Do you know where I've been?
No, where?
Out west. Can anybody hear that piano besides me? Shut it off.
Had a couple of too many, huh?
No, he's all right. Always acts this way. He's haunted.
He's what?
I was in a ghost town for 6 months. Would you like to hear about it?
Yes, go on. Scare me.
It was old and dead, and there was a main street with empty saloons of bare wood without paint and wagon ruts in the street filled with dry dust, but no wagons and no life and nothing moving. There was only desert and the sun and rusting iron, far off mountains, and that awful twittering silence.
Twittering?
I stayed there for 6 months, and I walked in the dust and went in the saloons and touched the dry, naked boards with my hands, and I kept listening all the time.
For what?
For life. For a man who would come and talk of gold on the other side of the mountains. But there was no life and no gold. Once I stood in the main street at sundown and shouted. It took weeks before the last echo died away. I've never been so frightened before in my life.
You'd better get this guy out of here, Temple. He's really tanked up.
No, he's just running away from a thing that hasn't any face.
Now, look here.
Finally, after 6 months, I woke up one morning and knew that everything was all right. No one had ever lived here and built a city with their hands and hopes and dreams. This ghost town was no end product of mankind, but only some kind of an illusion, a mirage. I laughed out loud, and the world became a wonderful place. And then in the dust, I stumbled on a human skull, and I knew there had been people there. I wept and pounded the skull into the dust with a chunk of rusted iron, and then I came here.
Who's that fellow over there? The one standing by the piano.
What? Oh, his name is Merriam, my dear. He's a novelist.
A novelist, he's a plagiarist. He made a lot of money by stealing. What do you think of my story?
It was kind of morbid. I don't see why you have to give somebody the shivers.
Maybe I want company.
You know, honey, I sort of like to meet that novelist fellow, if that's okay with you.
Well, of course, my dear, if you'll pardon us.
Ah, Venus. Venus made of the dust of a ghost town.
Davison, I'm just now beginning to realize the way you're always talking in poetic illusion. Of course it hasn't any face. It can't have one.
Ah, then you've seen it too.
No, and I hope I never do.
So do I. You know something, Temple? They've painted these walls exactly the right color.
What's so right about it? It's a hideous shade of green.
Yes, like green grass at night under an arc lamp. That's the color death is.
How do you know?
I don't know how I know, but I do. Who shut off that piano? How about some music? Let's have the love dance of Venus played with chopsticks on a set of false teeth.
All right, Davison, better sit down and take it easy.
I'm going to. Here comes Fruling back alive. When he gets here, I'm going to hit him. Then the bouncer will come on in, and there's going to be a devil of a fight. Want to get out now?
No, I'll string along, but it's no answer. It won't do any good. You know that, don't you?
Probably not. But one thing at least. He's got a face. Haven't you? Fruling! Come on, Temple. Let's take this joint apart.
We were thrown out on the street, of course, after a while, and ended up finally in an all-night diner, drinking coffee and talking until morning. But not about Davison's ghost. I knew now how horribly haunted he really was, and he was aware that I knew. We left it at that. 2 days afterwards, he sailed out of New York for Paris and was gone for a long time. I've wondered often since how prophetic that night might have been had I been able to see each piece in all its clarity. But at the time I could not, and 3 years had to drag by slowly before I reached one fearsome night when I stood beneath a little patch of green grass under an arc light. It was Mexico City, and the grass was splattered with blood. I knew Davison had arrived in Mexico City a day or two before, according to friends who'd seen him. They told me his manner seemed more strange than ever, and that he hinted of being on some mysterious quest. But as I strolled along the Paseo de la Reforma that evening, a few blocks from the great cathedral, I had not yet run into him, and everything had been hearsay. I was passing the theater de Jalisco when I began to hear a commotion in the lobby at first, but moving out toward the sidewalk. Cantinflas, the most popular comedian in Mexico, was playing the Jalisco, reason enough for a noisy crowd. But this was different. I began to hear one voice occasionally above the rest of the mob.
You fool! Cantinflas is an idiot, but you're worse. Can't you see that it's yourselves he's making you laugh and sneer at?
Davison!
Fools. Tonto. Locos. Fools.
It was Davison there in the center of the angry mob.
Por favor, senor. Please, let me pass.
What's the trouble, officer?
The Americano has created a disturbance in the theater. He has interrupted the performance. You will pardon me, senor.
Wait, I'll go with you. I know him. He's a friend of mine.
Bien, Beneguesa. One side, por favor. Move back. Andale, pusa. Calentos todos, silencio.
Well, here come the Marines, and right in the nick of time.
You'll never learn anything, will you, Davison?
Temple! Oh no, it's too much of a coincidence.
Yeah, it's beginning to frighten me. Come on, let's get out of here.
I'm sorry, senor, but that is impossible. There will be charges, questions.
It's all right, officer. I'll take care of him. Here.
Gracias, senor.
It's nothing. Do you understand?
Si, yo sé.
Let's go, Davison.
Está bien, Capitán. Son amigos y uno está borracho.
Once in a million years. Temple, I still can't believe it.
Believe what?
Well, the last time I saw you, we were thrown out of a speakeasy. Tonight, years later, and thousands of miles away, you walk past the theater at the same moment I'm being thrown out of it.
Pure chance, and I'm getting used to it wherever you're concerned. Why were they throwing you out?
Well, I tried to tell them that they were fools, that's all.
That's all?
Look, Cantinflas was up there on the stage, playing the part of a moron, an idiot almost. He impersonated other people, mimicked, pantomimed, and the crowd loved it. Yet all the time he was making them laugh at their own stupidities. He was making a mockery of all their hopes and beliefs, and they didn't even know it. They laughed.
Well, what would you have them do? Cry?
I don't know. I tried to tell them, but they said I was interrupting the performance. It would have been all right if the wall had been painted green.
That again. Davison, you're obsessed with death.
I'm obsessed with the need of a drink.
Well, here's the Cafe Madero.
A veritable palace. By all means, let's go in. Is this table all right?
Sure, fine. You've never shaken off that ghost, have you, Davison?
No.
Have anything to do with your being here in Mexico City?
Everything to do with it. I'm trying to find
Buenas noches, señores. ¿Qué quieren?
a waitress. I'm an American billionaire who has just bought the Teatro Jalisco, and I'm about to buy this cafe.
Sí, señor.
Perhaps I shall put you in charge here, make you manager of the place.
Oh, gracias, señor. Oh, poro. What would you like to drink?
Oh, anything. Tequila straight.
The same for mine.
Oh, bueno, señores. Yo voy.
Now, what is it you're trying to find here?
El Cristero,
El Cristero, you mean that cutthroat murdering bandit leader?
our patriotic leader, according to thousands of his followers.
Why, there's a 100,000 peso reward on his head, dead or alive. He's committed more atrocities than any other criminal in the history of Mexico.
Oh, he's ruthless enough, I'll grant you that. But he believes in something.
In what, for example?
Well, in helping the underdog, advancing the cause of the peons. I don't know for sure, and it doesn't matter. Can't you see that? What is important is the fact that he believes in anything enough to risk his life for it.
I'll let that go by. All right, so what do you plan to do when and if you find him?
Well, associate myself with him in some capacity, if I can manage it.
What? Davison, you're crazy. I know what you're trying to do, of course. but
Temple, I've got the feeling that this may be my last chance.
Oh, now look here.
No, wait. I was on the Riviera when I heard of this El Cristero. The waters of the Mediterranean were bluer than the sky. The breeze from the hills was soft and warm, and there were flowers blooming.
Sounds wonderful.
It was horrible. That thing came closer and closer. It was right over my shoulder.
Still no face?
Of course not. You know that.
Your tequila, señores.
Oh, here you are, waitress.
Oh, gracias, señor. Muchas gracias.
Then one day someone showed me a newspaper. There was a story about El Cristero. He assassinated a governor, wrecked a train, something like that anyway. I caught the next boat for Mexico.
Why? Do you want to assassinate a governor? Wreck a train?
I want to live with a man like this El Cristero, a man whose belief is great enough that he can risk everything to reach his goal. In the shadow of such a belief as that, maybe I can lose this ghost, this thing without a face. Maybe I can live.
And if not?
If not, oh, Temple, sometimes you ask such foolish things.
If you will be so kind as to pardon me, monsieur?
What is it?
The ears of a man may sometimes hear that which is not intended for him. My name is Rolfo.
Very interesting.
I have been listening to your conversation quite unintentionally, of course.
So?
I have heard reference to El Cristero.
Well, what about it?
The great El Cristero happens to be a client of mine. I might possibly be able to arrange an introduction.
Client, huh? What sort of a client?
I represent a European firm engaged in the manufacture of munitions.
Munitions, I see. And you think you can put me in touch with El Cristero?
Oh, I must talk with him first, of course. I could know by tomorrow evening at dark.
All right. Where will you be?
I might suggest that we meet on the steps of the great cathedral across the avenue.
Tell me something, Rolfo. Why are you going to all this trouble?
Oh, I like to be of service to my clients, and I am of the opinion that the formation of new friendships is most desirable in this life. Do you not agree with me?
No. If I did, I'd be selling munitions. I suppose they're the very best weapons one can buy?
Ah, monsieur, you should see my new 30 caliber rifle. Exquisite, semi-automatic, with bolt action, which permits one to fire as rapidly as...
Oh, shut up.
Easy, man. You've been thrown out of one place tonight.
Ah, no offense intended, monsieur.
All right, Rolfo. I'll be on the cathedral steps at dark tomorrow, and you'd better be there. If you're not, I'm going to buy one of your semi-automatic rifles, pay cash for it, and then use it to shoot you full of exquisite holes rapidly. Do you understand?
Ah, perfectly, monsieur. Until tomorrow night, then. Au revoir.
He must have got scared, changed his mind. I don't think he'll come.
He'll be here. Don't worry.
It'll be better if he doesn't show up. This isn't kid stuff, Davison. The man's a killer. 100 times over. We're just asking for it.
You don't have to come along.
And for 2 cents, I won.
Like to bet? Remember that speakeasy in New York?
All right, I'm a fool then.
Sure, who isn't? At least you can...
Good evening, monsieur.
Well, it's about time.
Ah, my sincere apologies. A man in my profession can hardly call his life his own. But everything is arranged. El Cristero will be most happy to talk with you.
Good. Where is he?
Oh, it is not as simple as that. I have a car in the street. We shall enter it, and then you must permit yourselves to be blindfolded.
All right, Sharon. At your convenience. The river's getting higher.
Your pardon, monsieur, but my name is Rolfo, not Charon. Shall we start now?
We drove for nearly an hour, as I recall, twisting and turning in what I recognize as a deliberate effort to confuse our sense of direction. Davison was by turns morose, then jubilant, depressed, then naively enthusiastic. And listening to him, I began to realize that this probably was his last chance to free himself of the horrible specter that had haunted so many of the years of his life. At last, we stopped in the courtyard of a squat stone building on the far outskirts of the city, and while I waited alone in an anteroom, Davison was taken inside to talk with El Cristero, the man who believed. As fate decreed, I did not meet El Cristero, but a half hour later, I did see him.
Monsieur Temple, come quickly.
What's the matter, Rolfo?
A terrible thing. Oh, come quickly, monsieur.
All right, where?
This way.
What's happened?
We are in terrible danger. Oh, if I only had known, but how could I? How could I, monsieur?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Here we are.
Davison, what the devil is this little guy trying to... Davison!
It's not pretty to die by strangulation. That is El Cristero. He's quite dead. I should know, Temple. I killed him.
His men, they're all around outside. They will find out any moment.
But why? Why did you kill him? Is that what you came here to do?
No, I came to follow him.
Then why did you...
Well, we talked for a while about his cause, another lost cause, I suppose. Right or wrong, I don't know, it didn't matter. Gradually, behind his words, I began to hear the idiot comedy of Cantinflas, the mechanical sneer of a piano playing in a speakeasy, the rattle of a dry skull in a ghost town.
But why? Why?
Well, suddenly the ghost was here in the room with us. I could see it. It had no face again at first, but then for a moment, it had the face of El Cristero. So I took his throat in my hands and choked him to death.
Monsieur, we must leave quickly before they find out.
What was it, Davison? What brought the ghost into the room?
He sneered at his own cause, told me how many stupid peons would follow him, told me how much he hoped to clean up, how much return I could expect if I cared to make an investment. Rolfo had told him I was a millionaire.
I heard you talking in the cafe. What else should I think?
Temple, he was only another idiot comedian, hollow and stuffed with dry dust.
Please, monsieur, they do not know yet. If we leave quickly, we may perhaps have a chance.
He's right, Davison. The man's followers are all fanatics. They'll cut us to ribbons.
Good. Then they could string us up on a wire, and we could flutter in the breeze at some county fair with monkeys in cages down below eating peanuts.
Why did I not see it before? This man is mad.
No, my little seller of munitions. He is only haunted, which means he is far too sane for his own good. Come on, let's hit the road. Perhaps the design of the pattern was inevitably fixed, even long before that night in San Francisco, when a man walked up out of the waters of the bay and told me he was fleeing from a ghost. As we drove slowly through the Central District, Davison suddenly opened the car door, stepped out, and was swallowed up in the crowd. I followed, tried to find him, knowing the danger that grew with each new minute. I heard the shuddered whispers that passed along the street. El Cristero has been killed. Blood, blood, blood. Finally, I saw them across the boulevard from the cathedral. There was a policeman, a priest in a black robe, and a small group of quiet spectators. They stood around a little plot of grass, and their faces were gray in the glow of an arc light. I looked for some expression on his face, some answer, but there was nothing. He lay there with his eyes closed, lips slightly parted, and there was nothing. Many knives had struck him before he fell, and his blood was wet and black on the green grass. He was dead. I guess so. I don't know.
He did a very foolish thing, senor. In the Cafe Madero, he stand up and shout to everybody, "I have killed El Cristero." He say, "Myself alone, I have killed him." Then he laugh and walk out. It was here they catch up with him.
They? Who are they?
Quien sabe, senor? It is hard for one to tell who. Maybe a follower of El Cristero.
Yes, even you or I, perhaps.
I do not understand you, senor.
No, it doesn't matter.
Muy pronto. The Capitan will be here. After that, you may claim the body if you wish.
Why? What's one body, more or less? The world is built on bodies.
Senor, I do not.
Tell me something. Did you see a ghost leave him when he died?
Senor, if you will pardon me, I must go tell the people to stand further away.
What was the meaning of it? Had he lived, only that he might one day make a plot of grass grow a little greener beside a boulevard in Mexico City? Had he been right after all, and died because he was right? I began to sense the presence of the ghost that had haunted him, hovering over us where we stood beneath the art light, hovering over the city and over the whole world. It was hideous and formless, and the blank, empty hole of its face was a bottomless void that swallowed men's souls and made them nothing. I shrank away from the awful vision, trembling, for there is no ghost more terrible than futility, the futility that turns the dreams of men into droolings by an idiot comedian that passes over the world and leaves a dead, dry desert without gold. I looked up at the white stars above our heads, looked with hunger and with fear, making of them a symbol of truth, beauty, love, clung to them desperately, praying that I might not become one of Earth's most cursed creatures, a haunted man.
someone who has been getting ready for Halloween way ahead of time. In tonight's cast, The Crazy Story, the part of Davison, the man haunted by a faceless vision, was Roger Morris. And Temple, whose path he crossed the world over, was played by Dave Sachi. Support in other roles down in Mexico was Walt Kavalik as Pearlie, Sue Kavalik as the girlfriend. What a coincidence. Donna Amesmeyer as the waitress and keeping law and order among the rowdies was the police officer, Andre Dixon. Quickly changing accents was again Walt Kavalik as Rolfo, the French wheeler dealer in munitions whose wheeling dealing went awry. My job, not only as announcer, but as providing the priestly final rites for poor El Cristero, and my name is John Shefke. The music background was provided by Ellie Babka, with sound effects created by Sue Gaczynski, assisted by Tom Lenz. Well, that's not. I'd also introduce joining our, well, that's it. And of course, for our sound was John V. Gelsomino. In just a moment, we'll be ready for the second play for tonight. So please, take a few minutes to pour yourself another cup of coffee and sit back and relax. Wait, we told you this was an evening of using your imagination.